Customer service, all WVDOH approved. To learn more, visit GreerIndustries.com or call 304-296-2549.
Most of us are faced with uncertainty every day. Your job, your finances, sporting events, schooling for your children, and so much more. With so much uncertainty surrounding you, there is one auto dealership that you can be certain about, and that's Doan Ford. You can be certain that you always get a great deal and the best service afterwards. Being in business for over 50 years has given Doan Ford the reputation of being a strong, reliable dealership. Be certain. Choose Doan Ford. Online at DoanFord.com.
I'm not buying till I check Doan Ford.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the watchdog trusts. More live and local programming than anyone else in the Ohio Valley. The Watchdog returns in moments.
Hello, everyone, from the Watchdog. I am the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Wednesday. Partly to mostly sunny skies, a mild day with a high near 60 degrees. The overnight low of 53 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Clouds and sunshine limited for the first part of the day before a few showers roll through, with the daytime high in the lower 60s for your Thursday. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Well, good morning, sunshine.
What day is it?
Wednesday.
It's not Wednesday.
Oh, yes, it is.
Isn't today Wednesday?
Indeed.
Okay, can we all agree now?
Today is Wednesday.
We made it to Wednesday. Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day to you.
Get over that hump.
Yeah, you speak about a
Of
hump.
course, you know where the phrase hump day comes from, don't you?
It's hump day.
It's showtime.
Conversations you care about with people you know. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe on WKKX and WVLY.
It's not just hump day. It is a spring-like hump day. Sunny and clear outside right now, 44 the temperature at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And it's going to get up close to 60 today. Aaron's officially calling it 58. 61 for the high tomorrow. Going to be sunny most of the day today. A little breezy. Very spring-like today. Again, breezy and warmer tomorrow, but some rain comes in, and fairly significant rain during the day tomorrow. Then, as has been the case lately, then we have a big temperature drop on Friday down to 33 degrees. So it's just one of those kind of weeks. But today, great day, spring-like day. You can feel like spring. It looks like spring. It isn't spring, but it seems like it is. We talked last hour with West Virginia Delegate Danielle Walker, an African-American delegate in the House of Delegates in West Virginia, of course, who received a KKK-themed email and a Facebook post of the same thing directed to her a week or so ago, and who has now filed lawsuit against the Right to Life group that promoted this KKK-themed piece. It was designed to say to Delegate Walker, the KKK would love to kill people that look like you, meaning African Americans, by killing the babies. And it was a pro-life piece. Delegate Walker has filed suit. She says she's had to hire extra security for herself and for her family and her house, and is not going to let this go on. A good conversation we had with her last hour. We'll get it up on Facebook, not on Facebook, on our website and the podcast page sometime over the next day or two. Ogden reporter Stephen Adams is back with us today. He'll be here in the next half hour. I saw Stephen wrote a lengthy Twitter thread. Oh, Martha, I can't believe he's talking about Twitter. It was a really interesting Twitter thread talking about some of these bills, like the anti-stereotype bill and some other ones. And Stephen really wasn't referencing the goodness or badness of them, but really saying that a lot of these bills that are pending in the legislature are distractions. A lot of the cultural value bills that are making their way through the legislature. don't really address the issues of our state, but they're distractions from serious business. I thought it was an interesting take that Stephen had. I asked him to come in and talk about that. We'll do that coming up a little bit later on. And you may remember last week, the Wheeling PD mounted one of their wolf pack traffic crackdowns. That's what Chief Schwarzenegger calls them. When they get they pick a particular area and they have all kinds of cars just congregated there, and they really swarm the area looking for violations. Sometimes minor traffic violations. And they arrested a lot of folks, or they shouldn't say arrested, but they ticketed a lot of people as a result of the Wolfpack effort. And predictably on social media, I don't know why don't they go out and deal with real criminals? Why are they worrying about people talking on their cell phones? And, that kind of stuff. You always get it. And I wanted to get your take on that. Are operations like this Wolfpack operation of value to the community? Share some of the numbers with you. We'll talk about that coming up a bit later on. And we'll also talk a little bit more about, Biff, I will never understand, and we talked before the break about the woman who killed her 3-year-old daughter, said SpongeBob made her do it. I got a couple more stories, including a couple of local ones. I will never understand how parents can endanger, and certainly how they can ever bring harm to their children. I don't understand it. It is literally beyond my understanding. And I have a couple stories this morning I want to share with you guys. And we'll do that coming up in a minute. But first, 9:15, quarter after the hour. Mentioned Delegate Walker was with us last hour. Legislature has passed the halfway point, moving on with more bills, more actions. Let's see what they're doing down in Charleston today with our morning Capitol report from Jeff Jenkins.
This is the Metro News Capital Report, brought to you by...
Oh, thank you. I didn't, that's great. Good point. Okay. Yeah, I should keep that calendar up here. I think we can just go to a break, and then I'll do this police stuff when we get back. That'll get us to half past. Stephen's in at 8:40. Okay. They've already passed the House introduction day. Yeah. Yesterday, yeah, okay. And then the Senate is Monday, and then crossover day comes at some point fairly shortly thereafter, where the last day that bills can go from one house to another, so. Okie doke. All right, go straight to the break. I got a couple of child endangerment stories to get to, and we'll talk about the wolf pack. Thank you. How was Bill this morning, by the way? He had some technical problems yesterday. He called me after the show. We tried to work through them. I think we got them figured out, so. Yeah. I'll say this, he was willing to listen instead of his usual, screaming about it. He knew he didn't know what he was doing on this particular case, and so I walked him through it. So that was good. Yep. Guess I'll find out today when I come to the meeting what the game plan for him is. Is he going to be here every day again, or I don't know. couple of scrambled eggs before I leave. Nothing else, just.
Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees4ohio.org.
Ohio has over 920,000 diabetics. If you are a diabetic, take a step in the right direction by having your feet checked routinely by a podiatric physician, the most qualified doctors to care for your feet. Adding a podiatrist to your healthcare team can help you better manage the effects of diabetes on your feet. Ohio Foot and Ankle Medical Association podiatric physicians are located throughout the state. For more information or to find a member of the Ohio Foot and Ankle Medical Association near you, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Dominating both AM and FM, the Watchdog is AM 1600 and 1370, FM 98.1 and 97.7. We are the Watchdog.
We're on air, online, on video, and on demand. Find us where you like us. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
9:21 after the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. We had our Capitol report a few minutes ago. I mentioned halfway past halfway through the legislative session. Biffy, today is day number
36 of the 60-day session.
So we've passed that halfway point, heading on down towards the end of it. I think yesterday was the last day for bills to be introduced into the House, and Monday is the last day for bills to be introduced into the Senate.
Yes, that is correct.
So we are getting closer to finalizing whatever it is going to be done, and then what they call crossover day comes down the road after that. And I know it's all kind of geeky and policy-oriented, but it's kind of stuff that it does make a difference. And boy, oh boy, a lot of things are making a difference down in Charleston this year. I get most of, it's a terrible thing to say, I get most of my news anymore by following the tweets of our reporters, of Stephen Adams and of Brad McElhenney and of others. Here's apparently a new bill introduced, which I just saw in a tweet this morning. Delegate Scaff of Kanawha County and he's a Democrat, has introduced a bill making it illegal to feed or care for homeless people within 1,500 feet of a school or daycare. I don't have any sense of why Scaff would introduce that, but I shall endeavor to try to find out. And I do love the way our reporters, sometimes they just talk to each other online, Biffy. Here's a little tweet thread this morning online at Twitter. Stephen Adams, I can already tell how this day is going to go. Brad McElhenney, filled with opportunity. Stephen Adams, no.
Not to take anything away from Stephen and Brad and the others that work down there, because the information that they do provide on Twitter, it's good information, but it's sad that that's where we have to turn to get news now.
But it is my, I'm not being funny, it is the Twitter feeds of the people I trust. Now, it's important to trust I trust Brad, I trust Mark Curtis, I trust Stephen. So the Twitter feeds of these people whom I trust, and there are others, Joe Severino of the Gazette-Mail and some others, I trust them. That is literally my primary source of news about what's happening in Charleston. Even Metro News, the website, wvmetronews.com, seems to lag behind. The stories on the Metro News website aren't necessarily up to the minute. You want up to the minute stuff, I find it on Twitter. I'm a little concerned about Stephen, though, saying I can already tell how this day is going to go, since I think we're his first visit of the day, coming up in about 20 minutes or so. So, anyway, but I get a huge amount of stuff off Twitter and some interesting perspectives. Former mayor of the city of Wheeling, Jack Lippard, good friend, posted this yesterday, which is a real, this is nothing to do with the legislature. This is a philosophy of life. Think about this, Biff. The demise of urban civilization is due to two things: new homes being built with no front porches and automatic garage door openers. You could spend years without ever seeing your neighbors except through a car window or if mowing the lawn. That's actually a good point. New home constructions with no front porches and automatic garage door openers. We just come and go into our own little worlds in their homes, right? We don't really interact a lot with our neighbors. And that's once upon a time, and I know I'm talking an old time. Once upon a time, you'd sit on the front porch at night and you'd look to the guys and you'd, "Hey, Bob, how was your day?" And you'd be having some lemonade. All right, that's what they had on the Andy Griffith show, but you'd be having might be having a Bud Light instead. But yeah, the demise of the front porch helped to kill the concept of neighborhood communication. So that's a good point. And I never thought about it, but Mayor Lippard points out the automatic garage door opener. You used to have to get out and actually open the door. Now, boop, push the button and it goes. Just the stuff you find online, I think is kind of interesting. So, all right, 9:26. I shared with you in the last hour one of these stories, and I have a couple more I want to share. And it's because I don't comprehend, Biff, how anybody can harm children. I don't get it. I have said over the years, I believe, and I've drawn the comparison, you cannot hold your breath until you die. You can't do that. Your body will not allow you to. You can say you will, but unless you put a bag over your head and tie it tight or something, you cannot hold you know why? Because your body says, nope, you gotta breathe. And your body will make you breathe. I have said for years, I feel that same way about, if I were to ever think about harming my kids or grandkids now, I think my body would shut down. I don't think my body would let me do it. I don't understand harming kids. Told you the story last hour about this woman in Michigan who killed her 3-year-old daughter. And she was all hopped up on drugs, heroin specifically. And she said that SpongeBob SquarePants came out of the TV screen and told her to kill her child. Unbelievable. The Ohio Supreme Court has ruled this week that a man who killed his wife, the mother of his children, is now able to fight for custody of his children. That you kill them. How can that be? How can that be? The grandparents have custody of the kids, and now killer dad wants to take it away from grandparents. My first, actually, and he's in prison. How can he? I mean, bring it closer to home. Just yesterday, Wheeling police arrested 2 different people in 2 separate incidents. They're not connected, but they are connected by the fact kids were involved, but the incidents were not connected. The first incident occurred right out here in my neighborhood by the Monument Place Bridge, the big, what we call the hump bridge. There was a 3-vehicle accident. When police got there, they found a 28-year-old Bel Air woman who was intoxicated and had 2 children in the car. Biff, it's horrible. Well, let me walk this through. It's horrible if you're going to get bammed up and get behind the wheel, okay? Period. Sentence over. It's really horrible if you're going to get bammed up and get behind the wheel and you've got kids in the car. But this takes it one step further. I have in my life been bammed up, right, Biff? You've probably been bammed up before, right? I've seen you bammed up at some of our parties, right?
Oh, yeah.
This woman who had 2 kids in her car and was involved in an accident had a blood alcohol content, according to the police, and I quickly say these are all allegations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. According to the police, her blood alcohol, 0.357. Aren't you dead at that level?
You would think.
How can, I mean, and she was driving, and she was driving with kids in the car. Holy crap.
I mean, that's got to be, what, 4 times over the...
About 4 times.
Yeah.
Let's round, I mean, they can't do this in court, but let's, for our conversation, let's round it up to 0.4, right? And then let's talk about, 0.1. So it's 4 times the legal limit. Sweet Jesus. How can you even be standing? And again, I got to be careful because this still has to go, I've got to deal with this in the legal system. But this is info that comes to me from the Wheeling Police Department. She's been charged with 2 felony counts of child neglect. Thank God no one was seriously hurt in the crash. And then another one yesterday, early in the morning. When the incident was reported yesterday, it happened on the 12th, which was, Saturday, I think, right? Happened early in the morning in the 900 block of Main Street. Police initiated a traffic stop for a motorist showing signs of impairment. When the officers approached the car, they found a young child in the car seat. After further investigation, police found bottles of pills in the car and determined that the Martins Ferry driver was impaired, and she was placed under arrest, charged with DUI, possession of controlled substance, and not having a license. I understand addiction. I mean, I really do, and I understand that when you are addicted, your mind goes crazy and you don't really realize what you're doing. But how can you get into a car? Well, first of all, how can you get into a car with a blood alcohol content of 0.357? I mean, literally, how do you get your foot up over the, how do you get in there at a 0.357? But how do you get into a car with kids in the car?
Yeah.
I don't get it, Biff.
Well, again, and it goes back to what you said earlier. You would think that there would be some part of that would say, that would literally stop you from doing it, but it doesn't. And like you said, thank God, literally thank God that none of the kids got hurt, and because who knows what could have happened.
Well, we know what could have happened. I mean, the ultimate horror could have happened.
Yeah, luckily it didn't get to that. We didn't get to that point. Didn't have to. You're not reading a story that says, hey, two young kids died because of someone else's stupidity.
Remember a few years ago, I think it was up in Weirton, there was a picture that made its way around the internet of a couple, I think they dead. I think they overdosed and died. Remember, in the front seat of a car? And little child was in the car seat in the back. Remember that?
Were they from Ohio?
Yeah.
And I think they drove to Weirton or something, and they found them in Weirton?
Yep.
Oh, I remember that picture.
And that picture went viral around here at least. And man, Biffy, I don't understand it. Again, I understand addiction. I understand people who drink too much. I understand people who get behind the wheel who drink too much. But to be at some point, doesn't something in your system say,
stop?
I can't get behind the car. I can't get behind the wheel with my kids in this car. I just, dad who killed the kids wants to adopt them. Well, I doesn't want to adopt them, but does not want the grandparents to have them, and he's in jail. Why does he have any standing on this? And a mom who says SpongeBob made me do it. God help us. I mean that. I mean that literally. I mean that literally as a prayer. God, help us with this kind of stuff.
It's just sad that we have to, read stories like this, and it's a shame. It's sad and it's shameful.
It is. And again, I need to be very careful that the local stories are just allegations that came to me from the police department. The arrests have been made, but nothing has been disposed of as far as I know. So, maybe there are extenuating circumstances. Maybe something is more or less that's being reported here. But on the surface, it just, and again, how can you stand at 3.357? I mean, how can you? All right, enough of that. I'm not going to get to the wolf pack today. We'll do that tomorrow because I got to go to Stephen Adams coming up next. Find out why he's all upset this morning. He's not happy about the way his day is going. And I'm fearful I may have something to do with it because I think we're his first stop on the day. Stephen Adams from the Ogden Paper coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show. But first, Ohio Valley headlines from the Big Seven, and we'll check the Morning Mountaineer report too.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News at WTRF, My Ohio Valley, and ABC Ohio Valley. Only on AM 1600 WKKX. The Watchdog.
Good Wednesday morning, Ohio Valley. I'm Stephen Ruffin with your 7 News headlines. Wheeling drivers won't have to find another way around the Washington Avenue Bridge by the end of this week. The bridge had set to reopen.
Okie dokie. Sounds good.
Great new way to help serve the residents of the county. 4 Tennessee residents are now behind bars for trafficking and possession charges. Belmont County detectives say they conducted 2 search warrants at 2 local hotels Friday night. Detectives say they found a total of 50 grams of cocaine and more than $2,000 in cash. Scott Collard, Austin Collard, Chandler Slagle, and Michael Santoro are all in Belmont County Jail. That was a look at your headlines. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Kansas State beats the Mountaineers at the foul line.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi, host of the CityNet Statewide Sports Line right here on Metro News. Join the Senator, Brad Howe, Coach Greg Hunter, and myself as we discuss the day's biggest sports stories, talking with coaches, former players, and sports writers from all over the state and across the nation, bringing you the latest from the high schools, colleges, and the pro game. So don't miss the CityNet Statewide Sports Line weeknights at 6:06 here on the Metro News Radio Network and streaming live at WVMetronews.com.
The Mountaineer basketball team makes a date for next Thanksgiving. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Caridi. That story coming up on today.
Oops.
Yet 35% of the food in this country is wasted. Those aren't just numbers, they're our neighbors, your daughter's friend from school, the family of 4 next door. The Kroger Company's Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation is committed to making fresh food accessible to all by ensuring it never goes to waste. Together, we can help end hunger. Learn more at zerohungerzerowastefoundation.org.
What had been speculated is now confirmed. Jumping ahead to next season for the Mountaineer men's basketball team, they will participate in the Phil Knight Legacy event next Thanksgiving weekend in Portland, Oregon. Now, this event honors Nike's founder Phil Knight for his contributions to the sport of college basketball. 8 Nike Elite-sponsored teams will be traveling to the event in Portland, and that field includes Duke, Florida, Gonzaga, Oregon State, Portland State, Purdue, West Virginia, and Xavier. Those teams have combined for 199 NCAA tournament appearances, 29 Final Fours, 7 NCAA titles. Each team will play 1 game per day in a bracket-styled format. Meanwhile, the Mountaineer baseball team getting ready to open up regular season play. They'll be in Conway, South Carolina this weekend, an event which will be hosted by Coastal Carolina. WVU will open the season on Friday as they take on Central Michigan. Then on Saturday, they'll meet up against Kent State, and then Central Michigan again coming up on Sunday. WVU wrestling team welcoming Wyoming to the Coliseum on Friday night. This will mark the Mountaineers' regular season finale. It will be seniors night inside the WVU Coliseum. Mountaineer wrestlers had their first Big 12 victory of the season last weekend, defeating Utah Valley State. And the Mountaineer rifle team, 4th rated in the country, begins postseason competition this Saturday. The Mountaineers hosting VMI and North Georgia in NCAA qualifier. That is today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi on the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield.
Hello, Ohio Valley. This is Kate Delaney inviting you to join me overnight here on the Watchdog. Whether it's talking to big names in entertainment or sports, discussing the latest political news, or just chatting about life, I'll be here to keep you company on the Watchdog. WVLY AM 1370, FM 97.7, or online at watchdognetwork.com.
Miss a part of the show? Want to hear a segment again? Check out our podcast page at watchdognetwork.com. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe continues.
8:41, 19 till the hour here on the Watchdog Morning Show. 47 degrees, heading up close to 60 today, officially calling it 58 over at the Storm Tracker 7 Weather Center. With me this morning is our old friend from the Ogden newspaper chain, State House reporter, Stephen Adams. Stephen, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good morning, Howard. Thanks for having me on.
I'm a little bit nervous here. I was telling the audience how I've discovered that so much of my information I gather from Charleston in particular comes from tweets from you and Brad and Mark Curtis and others, but I'm a little nervous. I see you tweeted out this morning, I can already tell how this day is going to go. Brad says, filled with opportunity, and you said no. And it makes me nervous because I think I'm like one of your first stops of the day. I mean, is this any reference to me here or to coming on this show? How this is?
No, sir. No, sir. You are the best. You are the best part of my day today. Most likely, outside of probably doing lunch with John McCabe, will be in Charleston today because we have our West Virginia Press Association annual legislative breakfast starting tomorrow morning, and there's usually a reception tied with that. It's one of those things, Howard, where just sometimes, some people have their Mondays, and my Mondays never fall on Monday. My Mondays always fall on Wednesday, and part of this is now chasing down, which I do have now, second confirmation of this endorsement from Governor Jim Justice for Congressman David McKinley in the 2nd Congressional District race. So
wait. I had not heard that. I didn't see that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The governor is
broke that this morning.
The governor is endorsing Dave McKinley.
Yes, he is. Apparently, he's the governor's headlining a March 23rd fundraiser here in Charleston at the Coliseum and Convention Center. And as a result of that, I think Hoppy sent the governor an email kind of asking for further clarification and got back about a 4-paragraph statement announcing that he does indeed support McKinley over Mooney. Some of those reasons include voting for the hard infrastructure bill, which would certainly help West Virginia infrastructure. That's something the governor was very supportive of, and in conversations I've had, he was very, very encouraging of not just McKinley, but the entire congressional delegation to support that. Of course, it was only supported by Senators Shelley Moore Capito, Joe Manchin, and Congressman David McKinley. Also takes some swipes at Mooney for being from Maryland and having his prior political career in Maryland. In fact, mentions that in its entirety of being governor, he's only met with Mooney once in Charleston, according to the governor's statement. So there's some swipes taken at that. Obviously, the ethics investigation that's continuing on. So yeah, Justice makes it very clear that he deals with McKinley quite a bit and thinks he would be good to be the next second district congressman.
All of those arguments make some sense to me. I can certainly understand each of those and how they would lead the governor to come to that conclusion. But I would have just, if you just simply asked me, who do you think the governor's going to endorse? I would have probably said Mooney, just because Justice is such a Trump supporter.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. If there's one thing in the statement where the governor kind of hedges a little bit, he does, and this is his words, quote, "Frankly, I do not agree with his vote, McKinley's vote, to authorize a January 6th investigative committee. However, it did take a lot of courage for him to vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and I know without question that vote was done out of his love for the great people of West Virginia." So he does allude to that a little bit. Trump being a family, Justice rather, being a family friend of Trump, switching his parties from Democrat to Republican at the urging of former President Trump. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of support and love there. So he does kind of hedge in his endorsement on that, but at least according to the statement, all the other things McKinley has done over the years, including the vote for the hard infrastructure package, that tend to weigh more in favor of this endorsement than against it.
That has to be good news to Dave McKinley. Governor Justice is very popular in the state. I think, Stephen, you might know these numbers better than I do. I think in some polls he is the most popular governor in the country in terms of percentage of approval rating. It certainly is up there. So for him to come out and endorse McKinley in this difficult primary race, that's a big deal for Dave McKinley.
Yeah, I think so too, because outside of Shelley Moore Capito, that still polls fairly well. I mean, Justice, at least over the last probably 2 or 3 years, does poll very, very well. Pardon me, sometimes up in the 60%, 70% range. A lot of people in the state support him. And again, I can tell you from experience that McKinley is down here almost definitely at the beginning of each legislative session. He always takes time to come down here and meet with the governor, meet with lawmakers, and find out what the needs are, what they're working on. And that way, he can basically be on the same page when he heads back to Washington. I know he's actively, I know the governor seeks him out in regards to counsel on different things. This Public Energy Authority from a few months back, recreating that was something that was done with conversations with McKinley. So they have a really good relationship from what I understand.
I must be honest, I had not seen that story. You're giving me total new information. I appreciate that. That's really interesting.
Breaking West Virginia Metro News story on the radio.
I'm sorry, I hadn't even seen that. Now I'm embarrassed. But that's interesting. You and I have talked a lot about the McKinley Mooney race. McKinley's been running a number of different ads now, and he really is hitting Mooney hard on the Maryland thing. Maryland Senator Alex Mooney and so on. I mean, that Maryland connection has been the McKinley campaign is really beating that hard.
Yeah, I would be curious to see, and I haven't had time since I've been covering the session, but I would be curious to see where those ads are running, because surely they're not running those ads in the Eastern Panhandle, because sure, those ads would be certainly helpful to some extent in Northern Panhandle, Middle Ohio Valley, maybe Central West Virginia, things of that nature. But if you're running that type of ad over in the Eastern Panhandle, well, most of the people who live in the Eastern Panhandle or either from Maryland or Virginia or work in Maryland or Virginia. So I don't know that resonates. In fact, that probably could backfire depending on where they're running those ads. But they could be targeting those ads very specifically too.
Yeah, I'm seeing them here in our area, in the Northern Panhandle, of course, where that would make more sense. Stephen, I mentioned to the audience earlier, and I think I just said to you, it seems like I get more and more of my information anymore from Twitter. The Twitter people that I trust, you and Brad and Mark Curtis and some of the others, when I want up-to-the-minute information out of Charleston, I go to Twitter. It seems like it takes a while for everything to filter through to the medium, whether it's Metro News or whether it's the Ogden paper chain or whatever. So I get a lot of I mean, that's where I go to get info. And so I always follow your Twitter and your tweets, and I was intrigued with a tweet thread you had yesterday, which is what I wanted to talk to you about just for a minute or two. You were talking about some of the bills that have been working their way through the legislature, and I think you were trying to sort of step back and say, I don't want to talk about whether they're good or they're bad. You just called them distractions, that there are distractions going on this session. Elaborate on that to me a little bit.
Yeah, and part of it is we're kind of back to a session that many people describe as slow. I would describe as somewhat normal. That will start to pick up here soon. I mean, we hit the halfway point last week, last Thursday. It's a 60-day session. So last Thursday was day 30. So we are probably by the start of next week, we will be 2/3 of the way through the legislative session. And things will begin to pick up because things will hit certain deadlines, such as, for example, yesterday was the deadline for bills to be introduced in the House. There's some exceptions to that, but for the most part, if you were a lawmaker in the House that wants to try to introduce something in the House, you missed the deadline to do that. But the point, usually in the lead up, we get hit with bills that I sometimes don't know where they came from. One of them is this SCR for Senate Concurrent Resolution 44, which would basically clarify, to make it very clear. I don't know why this needs to be made clear, but they think it needs to be made clear that the state's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972 is only valid until the 7-year deadline, which was in 1979, to actually ratify it. Because it takes 38 states to ratify a constitutional amendment. They only got to 35 between 1979 to 1979. But there's been efforts over the years to try to kind of revive the ERA, very, very unsuccessfully. Obviously, in the 70s, it was a big controversy. In fact, there was a miniseries that just came out here like last year, I believe, that kind of dealt with the people that were trying to push for the ERA. And it's one of those things where I wasn't expecting to see a resolution to deal with this, but apparently it's a thing being pushed by the National Right to Life and the state chapter of that as well, because there's some sort of concern that somehow there'll be a resolution in Congress that would lift that deadline, which means that you would actually have 38 states that have officially ratified the ERA, and then Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, can push through a bill that will basically legalize abortion, and then you don't need Roe versus Wade, which is a Supreme Court decision that created it in the first place. I know that's all a long explanation, but this took me by surprise last week when it came through, and because, as I said, it's like archaeology. It's I can't believe we're taking this thing up and dealing with this when there's other things they could be dealing with right now.
And I think that's the issue which struck me in the comments that you made in your Twitter thread yesterday. Yeah, I mean, I guess, as you explain it, I can see where in a bizarre circumstance the ERA ratification by West Virginia back in the 70s could have an impact moving forward, although I think that's stretching things way beyond belief. But given the things that actually need to be dealt with, really? we're going to take any time at all to talk about rescinding our 1970-ish ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment? Really? That's something we're spending time with?
Don't call it a rescission. You'll get an email from the guy at National Right to Life that runs what's called the ERA project that will explain to you how this is way more clever than a rescission, because there's an actual issue. There are 6 states that have rescinded the ratification of the ERA, mostly southern conservative states, things of that nature. And there is a question as to whether the U.S. Constitution actually allows a state to rescind a ratification. Some court cases have said no, you can't rescind the ratification. You ratify it. So part of the reason for this resolution that's being pushed, I think, here in other states, is trying to get around that wording. It's very, very clever lawyer talk for saying, well, no, we didn't rescind our ratification. We're just saying it's only valid from 1972 to 1979. And the guy that I've been getting these emails from, boy, thinks this is the most clever thing he's ever come up with. I don't know how it's still not really technically a rescission, because the ratification still exists on paper, and unless you're going to send an activist, Avengers Endgame style to the past to try to prevent the ratification of the ERA in West Virginia, I don't know that you can really undo that, but it doesn't really matter, because there's really not much of a chance of the scenario that the pro-life people have laid out that really happening. They don't have the votes in the House and in the Senate to it, because there are a certain number of Democrats that do vote pro-life too that would probably not support a resolution to lift the 7-year deadline off of the ERA so it could be put into the Constitution. So it's not a very likely scenario, which is why I don't quite understand the urgency of this.
First of all, Stephen, only you would come up with the Avengers Endgame time travel deal.
I'm a nerd, it's true.
Listen, I am too. I perfectly understand where you're coming from, and I understand why you came with that. You wrote a column, I think this weekend or this week at some point, Culture Wars Pervade the Session. Somewhat along the same lines, that some of these culture war bills, and I'm putting a little bit of words in your mouth here, so if I am, correct me, but it seemed to me the sense of your column was that some of these bills also are really distracting from doing the serious work of the session.
Yeah, and I would say a good example of that is House Bill 4011, which is the anti-stereotyping bill, the one that's dealing with philosophies and whatnot derived from critical race theory. And I've gotten some pushback for that column from people that think this is a real problem. And I'm not saying it's not. Some of these issues aren't problems in other places, but right now a lot of it's anecdotal, and there's really not much of a problem that I've seen here. Obviously, the Wheeling Park teacher has gotten some attention as an example of this, but I'm not entirely sure that really rises to an example of some of the more egregious things that I've seen out there from other states and other things. The fact that the bill has no real enforcement mechanisms to make school systems follow suit with putting these lesson plans specific to the dealings of race and the non-discrimination, things like that online, tells me that it's really just more trying to appease base voters, either the position of a Republican, who might be getting a challenge from another Republican in a primary coming up, or in the general election. And it's just meant to be red meat for base voters versus it actually doing anything. Because if there was a problem in the state, I think the bill would be even stricter.
And would provide some kind of enforcement mechanism and so on. So, all right. Well, Stephen, I hope I didn't. I hope I'm not the cause of all your grief today.
No, sir. No, sir.
You have a good lunch with my friend Mr. McCabe, and you and I will talk again. John and I will talk on Friday. We do every Friday, but you and I will get together again. And thank you. I'm embarrassed that I have to now look up my own affiliation at wvmetronews.com, to see the big story. Justice endorses McKinley in matchup against Mooney. I hadn't seen that story this morning.
It literally just came
Thank
out
you
at
for.
6 a.m., so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I should be on top of this sort of thing, and I'm not. But I appreciate your sharing with me. I'll probably talk more about it tomorrow because I'm done for the day. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining us today. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Try to
Alex.
keep a good upper lip, and we'll talk soon.
All right, see you.
Stephen Adams, Ogden newspaper chain. So I missed that whole. Man, it irritates me, Biff. It's a lead story at WVMetroNews.com. Governor Justice endorses Dave McKinley in the matchup against Mooney. That's a big deal. That's a big story. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, unless I miss my guess. The Watchdogs may be talking about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, and they go run the big gig. Are you back with me, Biffy?
I am here for a Thursday.
We'll keep on doing it till we get it right.
That could be a long time.
Indeed.
The Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
Rejecting another claim of executive.
All right, Biffy. Wish I had seen that story, although I didn't have time to talk about it anyways, but that's interesting story. Yeah. Glad at least we got it in through Stephen, so that's good. That'll probably be one of the big things for tomorrow. We've got Matt Robeson tomorrow at, I think, 8:15. Be another one of those ones where we call him on the secret line or whatever the heck that is. That's tomorrow. And I may try and put something together on this McKinley story, maybe Hoppy or somebody. I don't know. All right, I will be down there in a little bit, so if you need something, I'll just see you down there. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will talk to you in the morning. All right, have a good day. Bye.
On critical infrastructure before entering Kyiv and taking control of the government, with plans to complete the mission in 24 to 72 hours.
2 sheriff's deputies in Houston shot and wounded when they responded to a call of shots fired inside a home. Harris County Chief Deputy Edison Takeka.
The deputies were confronted by the suspect. The suspect immediately pointed his weapon at the deputies and began to discharge the weapon towards the deputies. Deputies discharged their firearm towards the suspect, striking him.
The suspect was killed. Each deputy shot in the leg. Both are expected to survive. A 9-year-old girl